Hi, friends. I'm Becca Werwell, author of the Road Trip Rescue series of contemporary faith-filled adventures for readers ages 8 to 12. And today we have a special guest, JJ Johnson. He is an award-winning author who loves comic books, coffee, and writing fun adventure stories for reluctant readers. JJ, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and chat with you.
So we have a lot of things we're going to talk through. I want to talk about your Iggy and Oz series because you also write for middle grade readers. And I also want to go a little bit into Kickstarter because you have a fun project planned that I want to hear more about. But first, before we go any further, can you tell us about the Iggy and Oz series?
Iggy and Oz is a series about two young brothers, Iggy and Oz, who have discovered some unique things that are happening in their neighborhood. And whether that's a magical chest that's bringing plastic dinosaurs to life, or a soda pop machine that gives them superpowers when they drink the soda, or an old handkerchief that brings their snot to life and turns it into a giant blob, or hypnotic ice cream. There's always something mischievous going on, and there's a mystery arc concerning a particular character named Mr. Chesterton. And right now there's 4 books in the series, and we're about to get to the 5th book in the series, which will start uncovering who Mr. Chesterton really is. And it's written for those young boys who pretty much do not like to read, do not enjoy reading in any way. And it's written targeting those reluctant readers.
Yeah, I loved the first book. I mean, I just don't know how you even come up with some of these ideas as you're describing them. The creativity is just fantastic. So along those lines, what inspired you, A, to write for reluctant readers? Was there a reason that you got into that? And then also, B, where do these ideas come from?
I think what inspired me is when in about 2018, I had this desire to, I was at Railmakers actually. And what happened was I didn't feel like my stories were really connecting with the right audience. And one of the things that happened is I came home and I had a desire to write a story for my kids who were 5 and 3 at the time. And I started exploring middle grade, and I started talking to teachers and school librarians and even parents. And one of the things I noticed is that there were some parents that were going around to used bookstores and places like that and finding the books that they grew up with and bringing those home to their kids to read, especially books for boys who probably didn't enjoy reading too much. And one of the biggest complaints I heard, especially from librarians and from teachers, is there were not a lot of books out there for boys that weren't almost a graphic novel in style. Now, I love comic books. All right. I love graphic novels. But what they were referring to is most of the books were like Last Kids on Earth or Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Now, I don't have a problem with those books. I get excited because they get kids reading. But I understood what some of these teachers and school librarians were saying. So I set out to kind of write this book. And I sat down with a yellow legal tab in my living room, and I just started trying to force an idea into existence, And I had this collection of yellow wads of paper on the floor, and I couldn't come up with anything. I was stuck. Meanwhile, my kids were sitting in the floor playing with all their dinosaurs. Jurassic World was popular at this time, so we probably had 200 or 300 dinosaurs, and most of them were spread out all over the floor. So I got down on the floor and I started playing with my kids. I decided I needed a break. And I looked at my son. I said, what if your dinosaurs came alive and just start tearing up the house? And then their imaginations took over. And we started saying, well, what if they got outside and started wrecking the neighbor's flower bed? Oh, that would be bad. And so about 20, 30 minutes later, after, being a dad, I got back up in my chair and I wrote a single sentence down. And I said, when a 12-year-old boy's plastic dinosaurs magically come to life, he and his friends have to figure out a way to stop them before they end up wrecking the neighborhood for good. And that became the premise for Iggy and Oz, the Plastic Dinos of Doom. And so that's really, I did not know really what I had done at the time. And so I spent a year shopping it around. I got dozens of rejections. And one of the things about me that most people don't know is I'm kind of stubborn. So when somebody tells me, no, there's not a market for this, No, nobody's, it's not going to sell well. I just kind of look at it and like, all right, I'm going to prove you wrong. That's how stubborn I am. And I went independently with it. I had a friend who was a cover artist, designed the cover for free. Just felt like they needed to do that. The editing came together. I launched the book in 2019, right ahead of COVID. And when COVID hit, teachers were like struggling to find content for their classrooms. And so they just started reaching out and saying, hey, would you do a Zoom call? And I wasn't charging for the author visits. I said, look, if you can sell 15 copies of the book to your kids and I'll send the book signed, I'll do the visit for free. And they liked that because at the time they some of them didn't have a budget. And to date, the whole series has sold well over 13,000 units as of this month,
Wow.
across all 4 books. It's nothing that I did in particular, marketing wise. It was a lot of luck, a lot of timing. The Plastic Dinos of Doom, the one that had gotten rejected about a dozen times, won the Realm Award in 2020. The Living Snot, which is book 3, won the Realm Award this past year. So 3 of them have been finalists for awards. 2 of them have won. And it's just been such a fun series to write. As far as where I get my ideas, a lot of them come from my kids. So I will listen to them talk with their friends on Messenger and stuff like that when they're playing video games. And I'll be like, ooh, that'd be a good piece of dialogue. And I'll like figure out a way to work it in.
Oh,
They'll
that's
talk.
awesome.
Yeah, they'll talk about different ideas. And sometimes I'm just like, how can I spin this to make a book, And so I do those type of things. And one of the things I think about when it comes to writing for boys is you got to write for the things that they enjoy, the things that will interest them. And people ask me, how in the world would The Living Snot?
Oh, of course.
I mean, it just connected with the kids. So
Uh-huh.
it's been a blast to write.
Oh, that's awesome. I wondered when you were describing how you came up with the idea of the Plastic Dinos of Doom, if that was similar for other books. And it sounds like, yeah, like different things your kids have said and listening in on their
Yeah.
conversations have inspired the other stories too. That's
Right.
super fun. So in all of these, I mean, you're describing the books to us and obviously like they're doing well and they've got lots of funny scenes and they're getting readers' attention and they're sharing them with friends. Do you have like a favorite character or a scene from one of the books in particular?
Well, Iggy is a cross between both myself and my oldest son, and Oz is a cross between my youngest son and my nephew. But my favorite character in the book to write is actually the bully, and that's Todd Stearns. And there are a number of reasons that Todd is my favorite character to write, because I was a very insecure kid, and so in order to mask that insecurity growing up, I was the bully. And so I take a lot of the lessons that I've learned in life and the things that I was struggling with, and I put them into Todd Stearns. Like, even sometimes the bully needs a friend. And that's a lesson that Iggy's having to learn. So Todd is one of my while Iggy's voice is my favorite to write in, Todd is one of my favorite characters to write, because I want to see, is Todd ever going to overcome this concept of being a bully and overcome that in the end. We know that Iggy's overcoming a story all the way through, but Todd is one of those that I think is a fun character for me to write, because every time I get to write in Todd's perspective, or not from Todd's perspective, but anytime I get to introduce Todd into the story, he's always going to raise the stakes and the conflict for Iggy. And that's fun to do, but it's also, I want Iggy to learn a lesson. I want Todd to change. And so those are some of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I was going to ask you a little bit about like why you write for reluctant readers, but you've answered that already in a lot of ways. But as you're talking about Todd and how a lot of like shaping his character comes from your experiences when you were younger, makes me curious. Were you a reluctant reader when you were young too?
Absolutely. I struggle with ADHD and anxiety and all that stuff. So I am very restless. even now as an adult. But as a child, I'd never stopped. I was just always going, going, going. And it wasn't like sports. It was just imagination, getting outside, always having to find something to do, never slowing down to do homework, never slowing down to read and things like that. I didn't like reading. It wasn't until I discovered an author that's actually from Oklahoma called Bill Wallace. And Bill Wallace was a children's writer at the time. And he wrote a book called Trapped in Death Cave. And I read that book. And one of the reasons that was fascinating to me about this book is it was set in what we call the Wichita Mountains here in Oklahoma. I had grown up going to the Wichita Mountains. And so I was just very excited to dive into that story. And it kept me captivated. And I kept going back to all the Bill Wallace novels and just finding all the Bill Wallace novels that I could do, that I could read. And a lot of it was just boys encountering a problem and having to overcome that problem. And so Bill Wallace was one of the first writers, I think, that I really just fell in love with books, fell in love with story. And then as I got older, I discovered new authors and new books and things like that. But Bill Wallace, I still have a lot of his books. In fact, I was going to use bookstores and finding all the Bill Wallace books because sadly he passed away about 15 years ago. So I wanted my kids to have those same books on their shelf. And so I was going everywhere I could to find Bill Wallace books.
It's so cool how the books that connect with us at that age really stick with us. And that's part of why I enjoy writing middle grade. And I'm guessing probably part of what you enjoy about it too, it sounds like. And then along those lines, as you're talking about like those books, they got your attention in ways that books never had before. Are there things that now as you're writing for reluctant readers, like tips that come to mind for you, or maybe things that you noticed in his books that you think really helps for you as a reluctant reader to connect?
I think one of the things that you need to remember when you're writing for boys and things like that, or reluctant readers, or even for any middle grade audience, it's, we talk about the rules of writing. And I think one of the things that we need to realize sometimes is that the rules of writing they're really there for publishing. They're not really there for readers, because most readers either A, they don't know the rules, or B, they could care less about the rules. And I think one of the things that I wanted to do in writing Iggy and Oz is I kind of tried to be, I tried to think of myself like, okay, what do my kids want to hear? And I wrote it in a way that I felt like would be a page turner for kids. I kept the word count intentionally low. I think they're only around 23,000 words. I kept the chapters very short, and I tried to write in a very simplistic language, and tried not to beef it up with flowery writing or anything like that. I tried to just keep it all simple. Wrote in first person. You don't have to write in first person, but to me, it was like I could connect with Iggy's voice. And I think one of the other tips is listen to kids talk. Listen to how they interact with one another. Listen to, the little phrases that they have, these little, slang phrases that they have. And my kids will say something and I'll look at them like, what? Oh, you don't know what that is? And so you got to kind of listen to it. But I think that's my biggest tip is be around kids, listen to kids, understand what kids are interested in, understand what holds their attention other than the screen, and try and incorporate a lot of those things into the story, because we're competing with the screen time right now. My kids would rather be playing Roblox and Minecraft than coming and sitting reading dad's book. All right, so I got to think, okay, what's going to hold my children's attention? And so I keep the word count short. I keep the chapter short. I keep the pacing moving as fast as I can. And I try to keep the plot twist weaving in and out and delaying the story. I give a question throughout the story, like, that's the mysterious question. And I try to build anticipation on when they're going to either answer the question or overcome this question. And so for me, it's all about that question that sets the story off.
I love that. How fun that you have your kids at home that you can be listening to and learning from. And like you have a very direct example for your reader that's right in front of you.
Yeah.
My daughter is like only a little over a year old. So I'm not quite at that stage where I can be like listening and learning from the language she uses. But that's really cool. I'm going to take us kind of on a turn here because I want to talk a little bit about Kickstarter. Right now, book 2 in my series, Road Trip Rescue series, is launching on Kickstarter. And I know you've used Kickstarter before for your books, and also that you have a really neat project coming up on Kickstarter soon. So can you tell us about that project, and then we'll get into kind of what makes Kickstarter fun?
Well, the project I'm working on is a book called Interstice Undone. Here's the book right here. Here's the cover. And what we've done is my friends Jason Joyner and Steve Raza, both who are Realm Award winning writers. Jason writes YA, and Steve writes, I think I'd say his characters are really set towards the older YA audience, maybe the new adult type audience. It's funny. I joke and say my readers become Jason's readers and Jason's readers become Steve's readers. And so what happened is that Steve, in one of his novellas, brought his character Mercury to Whispering Pines, where the Iggy and Oz stories are set, and was looking for this chest because, like Iggy, he explores, these strange artifacts. And it was a fun little crossover and no big deal. I had published a flash fiction story for Havoc magazine in one of their anthologies. And in that anthology, I had Iggy call Mercury for help, who is Steve's character. Well, Jason comes along, and his publisher had folded during COVID. So he had just gotten his rights back. And he messaged me and Steve one day and says, "Hey guys, I have a weird idea. And I'm going to teleport my guys into your all's world, or teleport my characters, because his characters are superheroes, and one of them his gift is teleporting." And he says, "I'm going to teleport my characters into your all's world, and then we're going to write a crossover." And he sent us the first chapter of this book. And Steve and I are like, okay. We looked at it and we're like, oh, yes, we're doing this. And it started out as a short story, but when you put 3 Discovery writers together, you actually end up with a novel later on. And so this is a book that takes Iggy and Oz, Steve's main character Mercury, and then Jason's superhero teens from his book, The Rise of the Anointed, brings them all together into this just chaotic story where they're solving a mystery. It feels a little X-File-ish in some ways, but it's a good starting point for anybody who hasn't read any of our books. You can read this book. It's not going to give any spoilers away for any of the other Iggy and Oz books, but it will introduce you to all 3 of our characters. And it's basically, we're calling it an epic crossover. And so that book is getting ready to launch on Kickstarter right here at the 1st of May. So
awesome. Yeah, I love the way you're collaborating on that project. I think collaboration is so important as authors. And so to be able to do a project like that together, and also that you're all Discovery writers, I can't imagine what that process was like how fun to be able to together discover that this is not just a short story, like this is bigger than that. That is so fun. So along with that, like Kickstarter, you're launching May 1st, you said?
I think it is May. I think it might be May 6th.
So beginning of May.
Right, yeah, the first week, first Monday in May. So
soon, regardless.
Soon, soon, very soon.
Why Kickstarter? Why do you think that's like an extra fun option for readers?
Well, I think one of the things about Kickstarter that I enjoyed is there's different ways to do Kickstarter. The last time I did a Kickstarter, I was doing it because as an independent author, I just needed funds to get the book into production. I set a logo goal. I have fans, but I don't have like thousands and thousands of fans out there, even though the book is sold well, because the people that are coming to your Kickstarter are your fans. They're not the just casual readers that pick up your book every so often. But one of the things I looked at in Kickstarter the first time I did it is I made a ton of mistakes. And Jason did a Kickstarter, and I like the joke that says, I screwed up so that you could learn how to do it right. And I funded on Kickstarter. He funded a little bit better. And we're like, what if we took this book and we launched it on Kickstarter? And now one of the things that we're hoping to do with this book is that it will just allow us to launch it really, really, really well and get it into hands of people. They can pre-order the book. They can get it ahead of when it actually physically launches. They can share the reviews. And I think for us, our goal is really to build a lot of buzz around the book.
Yeah, that's great to get people talking about it. And I feel like for my projects, one thing I've really liked about Kickstarter is I think it makes readers feel like they're more involved in the process. Like they're getting to watch this project, like you said, it's a lot of buzz and it's exciting. Yeah. And you see like, are we going to reach this goal? Are we going to go past this goal? What's going to happen next? Like some projects have stretch goals. That's what we're working toward right now is my campaign. What can we add toward this project? And sometimes you get to like vote on those stretch goals so that readers can really be part of it. So I think just inviting them kind of closer into the publishing process can be a really fun, I mean, honestly, on that collaboration topic, like not only are you collaborating together as authors, but now you're inviting readers to join in the process with you even more directly. So I think Kickstarter sounds like a really fun way to launch this project in particular.
Yeah, I think you invite readers to be a part of the project. And one of the things that I think authors need to learn is I think a lot of authors go into it with a fear of what if I don't get funded? Well, just set a low goal and just have fun with it and enjoy it. And you don't measure your ending fund by your worth. It's just enjoy it, enjoy the process. And it's a blast. I have fun with it. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think it can be really fun for authors if we let ourselves enjoy it and not like are comparing to other campaigns or to whatever. And also for readers can be really fun to join in. So JJ, thank you so much for chatting and sharing all of this. I'm really excited about this Kickstarter project and everything else you have going on. Where can readers go to learn more about you and your books and to make sure they don't miss this project?
One of the places that you can go to find me the most active, obviously, is Instagram, JJ_Johnson_author. That's where I'm primarily at. I'm also on Threads. I don't hang out there that much. And in the same location on Facebook, JJ_Johnson_author. My website is jjjohnsonwrites.com. And I'm also on Substack as far as newsletter and things like that. So, and you can get to my newsletter through my website. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, I appreciate you having on, and I'm excited about your Kickstarter and excited about your book. I think it's a really good book. I was very glad that you let me read it ahead of time. So,
thank you. I really appreciate your endorsement and you taking the time to read it.
Thank you.